Mop, not the Wop here. Before we get started, I just want to let y'all know we about to listen to a lecture I did last September on social policing. My channel was a lot smaller back then, so this lecture went largely unnoticed. But there's a lot of high value information in here, and because I see a lot of people getting caught up in the same traps that we discussed then, I felt it would be important that we re-release this just to give you another chance to get this game you missed last time. Let's go. Social policing is a big part of society, and most people, they do it and they don't even realize they do it. You're being coaxed and programmed and trained and subtly taught how to do it, and we do it daily, and like I say, we oftentimes just don't. We're not fully aware of it, but we want to unpack. I want to unpack that today. Policing, similar to like actual police, the actual authority. It's not so much about telling people or restrictions, telling motherfucker what you can't do. It is restrictions, but telling people, oh, you can't do this and you can't do that. It oftentimes is more of you can't do it like that, or you have to do it like this. It's more of keeping you in line to do it in a specific way. You get what I'm saying? There's a lot of controlled substances and illegal, seemingly what they told you, it's criminal shit, man. But I've seen people be able to afford the representation, Mop Law and Company, if you wonder, and they get controlled substances and all kind of charges reduced down to without to motherfucker not having the stamp that allows them to transport illegal substances and shit. It's all kind of I'm saying all that to say oftentimes motherfuckers need you to do things, especially in this society. There's a way that things have to be done for the benefit of society. And that's where the idea of a deviant comes from. Someone who deviates from the structure of what we call society. And it used to be when you deviate from the main order, well, I'm gonna say what it used to be, but motherfuckers who deviate, they try to you subjugate them, or you do what you can. Like I say, that's where the social policing comes in to try to get them back in line. Oftentimes it's rooted in insecurities in one's own self. And like I say, all of this leads back to narcissism and the main character syndrome and all these other bullshit ass social labels, societal labels that people place on motherfuckers, you know? And it's about giving people, like I said, the creating a deviant or the motherfucker that defected, you know what I mean? It used to be a time when if someone was arrogant or selfish, you know what I mean? That term that I just used was more than enough. It worked. But over time, we've gotten to this place where motherfuckers, it's not as effective. And the fundamental core of it, all right, pull it back for a second, y'all. So I'm sure a lot of y'all have heard, or maybe at least some of y'all have heard somewhere where they say, today almost everyone is a narcissist. fits the narcissist term definition. But in reality, so NPD, narcissist personality disorder, is only affects less than 2% of Americans. But what happens is society itself is narcissist. And you'll understand what I'm saying by the time I get where I'm going. So when you look at what a narcissist is a person that, or is the concept of something or someone that only cares about what serves them. And if it doesn't serve them, they'll gaslight or, use logical fallacy or manipulation, all kinds of tactics to get you to fall in line with their order. Like I say, this goes back. Now you see how we getting back to the social policing. So, like I say, narcissism, initially, they created the term in like the early 1900s, like 1902. Might have been late 1800s or some shit, but over 100 years ago. And it was created for a specific type of person. Actually, when they first created it, the first time you heard it, it was to describe a person's like autoeroticism type shit, like a man or a person who's they get off on pleasing themselves, not necessarily in an erotic way, but more so like self-serving, just being a selfish motherfucker, like what you call a narcissist, what the world considers a narcissist, but in a way where let's pull it back. I got definitions, and I don't want to switch this up because I like my bear with me, y'all, bear with me. We're gonna go back a little bit farther because I just gave y'all some wrong information. So narcissist it doesn't come from the 1900s. It comes from ancient Roman mythology. And the myth was Narcissus and Echo. So Echo was his nymph. And Narcissus was rejecting nymphs for love. Was rejecting Echo's love. And because he rejected Echo's love, he was cursed to fall in love with his own reflection. And he eventually pines away and dies, unable to consummate his own love. So the original myth, it's a dualistic cautionary tale, and it's highlighting the dangers of both extremes of the fixation. Narcissist's self-obsession and Echo's codependent self-erasure, because it's not just about narcissist denying his love and denying her love and being cursed to fall in love with his own reflection, but there was Echo's erasure and her seeking, and it was the importance that was placed on her desire for his love was the catalyst for her self-erasure. You get what I'm saying? So this is a myth. This is a story like folklores and tales, and from the Roman motherfucker. They had a lot of weird myths and shit going on. But that's where the concept of narcissist comes from fundamentally, is where the word, the term, and all that shit. But like I say, back in right before the 1900s, right after Sigmund Freud, as we've discussed before when we was talking about the Freudian slip, but they revisited this and equated it to like ego libido, and that's what I meant when I was saying like the autoeroticism. And it's from that, it's more like that's the God complex, similar to what what's defined today. But what needs to be understood is, man, there's a primary narcissism that, especially like as a child, it's necessary. You're not fully human. Like, it'd be difficult for you to interface in society or in the world at all without any level of narcissism, and that's what we're gonna get. But I want to kind of come at it and walk through the core of it. So, like I said, we talk about the myth of narcissism and how that gets reintroduced in the early 1900s, a couple decades after the end of slavery. And it's introduced, like I said, under the disguise of this new God complex, this ego libido, to where it's a sex drive for your ego, if you will. But here's the thing. How over time that comes back and it gets represented a new way. And next thing you know, this God complex idea, and it comes into play, like I said, around the early 1900s. That's around the time that society started to shift in a new direction. What was normal and okay before now needed definitions. Now, when I say normal and okay, I don't mean what was going on was actually normal, but I'm just looking at from the societal norms at that time, what was accepted and what was okay. So now we're a couple decades out of slavery. So what was acceptable behavior before is no longer going to be acceptable, because the society model is different now. You get what I'm saying? It's not just us. It's not just you got second class humans that are property, and you got this other group of the white motherfuckers. If you got this complexion, then you meet this standard, or you're American. You get what I'm saying, right? But now you're integrating these people and saying, well, now these are, you gotta pay them. And, you know what I mean? There's new dynamics. So you bringing motherfuckers into the fold. Now you bringing motherfuckers into the society. So with that, there will need to be some adjustments made to what the norms are, what's expected of an American. And that's where we get the conflicts with all this shit, where, you know what I mean, civil rights and all this shit, because what they saying is conflicting with what the fuck it is, you know? And that's human nature. But the idea of narcissism is you don't care, you more concerned with what's best for you. And I want to ask y'all this. Where in the animal kingdom is any motherfucker not most important or most pressed about what's best for them? Now, there's a reason with that. You don't want to be entirely selfish, and you don't want to be entirely selfless either. What's the saying, motherfucker? You could be so loyal that you unloyal to yourself. You know what I mean? So there's balance, duality in all of life, you know? And that's where you gotta stop letting motherfuckers tell you, oh, because you doing something to make you better, and they not doing what the fuck, all right. And they not doing what they could be doing to make themselves better. So to soothe that insecurity in themselves, they'll tell you that you're doing too much. But that's not the case. And that brings us back to how I said, well, not me. You'll hear how motherfuckers say that almost everybody is a narcissist today. But clinically, from the doctor's perspective, less than 2% of Americans are narcissists. However, society, the group thought of society is like inherently narcissist or fueling of narcissism, because what it means to be a narcissist, like I say, is you'll do whatever it means. You do whatever you got to do to get your way, or at least this is the one they going with. That's not when I say that's not the clinical definition of it, but how it's used, the pop culture version of it is that you'll do anything to feed to make sure you good. You disregard others. You make everything about you. But just ask yourself, man, when did you ever wake up and felt wake up as somebody else other than you? Now, as I said earlier, there is reason within that. There's balance, because once you start, there are people around you. You know what I mean? And the world doesn't revolve around you, but it absolutely does. Your world revolves around you. And if you don't believe me, well, you'll find out. You won't be able to process it, but you'll find out when you die. It's just you. Now, you got people around you that you care about, or that you're responsible for. And then there's the interdependence factor. Well, we need each other. No man's an island. I mean, you could try, but no man's an island. We do need one another. So with that, and like I said, that's where the balance comes in, to where you can't be entirely selfish. But even with that, you can't be entirely selfless either, because you're entirely selfish, you hurt others. You have the potential to hurt others. If you're entirely selfless, you have the potential to hurt yourself. You know what I'm saying? But with that, when you know what you're doing, when you understand your purpose and you understand the path and the journey that you're on, a high level of selfishness will get you there. And consider things like the airplane or motherfucking rubber, just different inventions, the cars, you know what I'm saying, the engine, the wheel, you know what I mean, different concepts. Where someone was so selfish and so self-indulged that it was all about that. But it took that selfishness to be able to manifest something that was to the benefit of all society. And this is why you can't let motherfuckers tell you not to do you, or that you doing you too much, or that you doing too much. You know what I mean? Read your own room and know when you are doing too much. I'm not saying it's impossible for you to be doing, not to be, you know what I'm saying? But don't let nobody who's not doing enough, don't let nobody who's not doing enough tell you that you're doing too much. Now let's come back to how social or society policing and shit is rooted in insecurities. So the teacher asks a question, you may not know the answer, but you have an idea. Not even just you. Let's say it's multiple students in the class. And here's where we highlight the difference between the ordinary and the extraordinary. Because you may not know the answer, but you have an idea about the answer, and you raise your hand because you want to put forth what you think forward. And then you have people who they don't know the answer, and they think they might know the answer, but out of fear of being wrong,
they won't even raise their hand because they don't want to be wrong. They don't want to be seen as wrong by the other motherfuckers who's not even raising their hands. So what'll happen is, let's say you raise your hand and you give an answer that you thought was the answer and it's wrong. Now the person who didn't raise their hand because they weren't sure of their answer, they might mock you or tease you or say so, or make fun of you if you was wrong. And that's the social policing to keep you in line, to keep you from standing out, or don't just fall in line, because that was what they did. And so they're punishing. It's an attempt to punish you for the inactions that their insecurities didn't allow them to have move on. You know, and that's how society as a whole is narcissist. When less than, like I say, 1 or 2% of Americans are actually narcissists. You have a group thought that says that you need to be in your place. You don't get too far out of line. You don't get too loud. You don't get too bold. Don't be too bright. Don't be too dark. You know what I mean? You need to be a perfect gray. You know what I mean? Because with that, everybody who was overwhelmed by the pressure to just conform, they're at ease in gray. You know what I mean? There's no anxiety with that. And again, when you decide, man, I'm feeling red, now you're challenging on a subconscious. You challenging the other motherfuckers, the conformers, especially the ones who are conforming, and they don't want to conform, but they think they're supposed to conform. And with that, you'll be surprised how large that percentage is. It's human nature. People want, like I say, motherfuckers don't want to. It ain't that motherfuckers don't want to stick out like sore thumbs, because in a perfect world we would, but society, American society, where capitalism and democracy and all these different concepts, where we have to think similar in order to be a majority or risk being a minority, you know. And that's a whole nother thing in its own, you know what I mean? Because now once you do everything in your power to make sure that you're in the majority, that's how you ruin democracy. Fundamentally, that's the flaw in democracy, because the majority could be 51 to 49, and yeah. But with that, it's like, what do you do? Because, hold on, y'all, I had some shit just happen. Bear with me. Yep. But yeah, if the minority is 49, let's say you got 100 people, and we're trying to figure out if we're gonna be vegetarians or meat eaters. Pause. So if 49ers say, I want to be one by one, we going through it, asking each member. And let's say the first 10 motherfuckers say they want to eat meat. or let's say the first 10 motherfuckers say they want to eat vegetables. They don't want to eat veggies. A number of them motherfuckers at the end might have only said veggies because the first motherfucker said veggies, right? And then as that goes on, that just compounds more and more and more and more and more. And it influences motherfuckers' decisions and what they gonna do, because motherfuckers be having herd thought. And that's just the reality of life. And so we get up to 100, and now we got 48 motherfuckers that eat meat and 52 motherfuckers that want veggies. But it's hard to adjust or account for how many of them motherfuckers just they're not free thinkers. They herd thinkers, and they just chose out of confirmation or conformity early on, because they would have eyeballed if they said they want to eat meat. Pause. And this is just an example, but I'm using this to kind of put it on paper to show you how democracy ain't necessarily the best way. And like I said, it comes back to the narcissist shit, but this is why and how it plays on society itself becoming narcissist. Because you have to have that majority in order for your position or your idea or the ideology, whatever it is, in order for that to be the dominant one, you have to be the majority. In comes the deviance and all these other aspects that we were speaking about earlier. So if you want to be a part of the dominant society, yeah. So now let's look at it like this. Now let's pull it back a little bit more. Now, as I was saying in the beginning, it used to be a time if you was arrogant or self-indulged or selfish or conceited or some shit, or that term alone worked good enough. But let me tell you how flawed person works. So a flawed person, it's easy. Let me say it this way: it's easier for me to discount you by diagnosing you. And what I mean by that is, let's say you got a friend or associate or some shit, and y'all have differing opinions. Let's say you're trying to build your business or some shit. You got a brand you're trying to build or something like that. And your homie, y'all have been homies forever, you know? But you just don't have the time no more. You know what I mean? You oftentimes, you're doing things to contribute to what you're building. So you have less time to be around or come kick it and do any of that shit. You know what I mean? What the society is thinking, what pop culture done, they created it to where now you don't have to, instead of trying to have actual empathy, which is something a narcissist has trouble with, instead of actually having empathy and considering what they're doing and what they're trying to build and all that type of shit, you can, instead of doing any of that, you can just say, you know what? You're a narcissist, and I don't have to deal with you. That gives you an easy way out without actually dealing with the shit. I mean, it's fine, ain't no wrong with that. But just be aware and mindful of the motions and what they mean when you're doing them. You know what I mean? I could say, because it's not just that term. You'll notice this shit. When motherfuckers do shit somebody don't like, then you gotta pay attention to these type of people. You got certain people who will, like I say, they'll diagnose you with some shit. They'll tell you, oh, well, that's because you have this problem. You're bipolar, or you're narcissist, or you depressed or some shit like that. Some shit to negate and dismiss you type shit. And like I say, that's the fit into society. It's not really up. And I know that sounds vast because it is. It's more to it than what I'm just saying. And I try to fill it in, but it comes back to, like I say, man, you have the majority, the dominant society. And I don't give a fuck who you are. You, as a black man, you might not want to be white or no shit like that, but nobody wants to be in the non-dominant society. For the most part. There's never any absolute, so I shouldn't say nobody. But for the most part, nobody wants that. So the diagnosis shit is it'll put you over there with them. And the first step is we're gonna diagnose you with this, and they give you a chance to either fix your ways to conform and not be a narcissist, or you can defect. You can deviate, and we're gonna call you I'm gonna diagnose you as a narcissist. And everybody that think like me, that wants to, you know what I mean, they gonna put you in that category. They're gonna tell you got main character syndrome. When in reality, it's probably more closer to you value yourself, you know your worth, you know what I mean? Something along them lines. You believe in yourself or some shit like that. And it's motherfuckers be having extremely difficult times even fathoming the concept of them being able to do such things, you know what I mean? And unfortunately, these individuals will make up a majority or the majority of society. And it's by design. We'd have to do a whole nother thing on sheeps. I mean, well, it ain't. We could do it here. The masses, by and large, are fools, man, and it's by design. That's what schools are for. That's why warehouses and all. You know what I mean? That's why this society is set up the way it is. And I don't say that to put nobody down. I've worked in warehouses and plants, and I've done all kinds of shit in my life. However, with that, I've gained insights, so I can see things from a different lens, you know? So yeah, you got a warehouse full of motherfuckers that don't get that they doing what they busting down these hours. They gonna go home, drink a beer, smoke a blunt, have a meal, get some pussy, wake up and do it again. And that is the normal. That's what's normal. I'm not saying that to say something's wrong with that. A large majority of human beings are going to live their life like that. And like I said, that ain't nothing wrong with that. If you're okay with that. You got some people who are not okay with that. You got some people who see more for themselves. Being an athlete or some shit, man. You look at your celebrities, your rappers, your actors, your successful lawyers, your successful doctors. Anyone who is successful in their craft, by society standards, is going to have a level of narcissism by society standards. But you gotta, that's society standards, because it's important that, like I say, the standard be normal. if I'm getting through to you, it's important that the standard be normal, because if the standard was extraordinary, it just would make for and a very eclectic and eccentric society that's a lot more dynamic and might not be as stable as what we have now. So we don't put that shit together. It's not us coordinating it like that, but I hope at least some of y'all are picking up what I'm putting down when I'm saying these things, because while it's society, it's us that behave according to the norms that's set forth for us. It's the powers that be that set this shit, to set the board up. You know what I mean? And I say that because it's so many aspects that you don't realize until you take a second to realize. You know what I mean? Most things are a lie, you know? And it's not that most things are a lie, but most things aren't what they seem because there's more going on under the hood. I've spoken to y'all about like YouTube, for instance, how on YouTube we your views will only get as much as you only get a view if you get an impression. You can't. An impression is who they showed your video to, and the view is who clicked it. And you can't get 100 views if they only showed your video to 3 people. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. Now I'm gonna brush past this because it's really about that, but you can make exceptional, high quality content, but if the visibility isn't there, you can be in a graveyard. Like YouTube has a graveyard of content, and not just YouTube. Spotify has a graveyard of content. All these streaming, man, there's a graveyard for movies that no one has ever seen. There's a graveyard for documentaries that no one has ever seen. There's a graveyard for songs that no one has never heard, no one will ever hear. There's a graveyard for companies no one's ever heard of. All that shit exists. You know what I mean? Because there's moving pieces to this shit. And cue back in society and how it has to function. You know, this is a capitalist America. And that's just what it is here. It's a capitalist America, and it's run a certain way, and structured a certain way. And if you deviate from there has to be some kind of on the society level that'll kind of correct that. That'll kind of keep that in line, because if everybody wanted to be a fucking creative, well, that'll make the industry difficult. It'll make it difficult for like labor industries. If nobody wants to cook, then you don't get no restaurants, you get no fast food. Nobody wants to farm, you don't get no, you get what I'm saying? So you have to have in a society a baseline of order that, like, you use moral values and patriotism, and just different controls to get people to willingly fall in line. Like I say, man, this is for the motherfucker that needed to hear it. A lot of people, relatively, but people understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying anything that's new or it's no groundbreaking shit. But what happens is you'll be surrounded by people who are calling you a narcissist or telling you you're this and that, and you ain't got nobody else, or you ain't got you can be inundated or inoculated with that shit to a point to where you believe it. Because you got them running that game on you. And that won't even be the case. It might not even be the case. It could be the case. But like I say, MPD affects less than 2% of Americans, so it's hardly likely that you're a narcissist. Main character syndrome is not a real syndrome. That's some shit they made up on TikTok, like literally. You don't got it. It's your fucking life. You are absolutely the main character. What are you doing? Go do what's best for you, because within reason, do what's best for you, especially if motherfuckers depending on you. But let's transition over. I want to move over to, let me see if I can add something real quick. We're gonna go look at the Substack, kind of go through it and look at a couple different things in there. Bear with me. I'm just making sure, throwing that on there. And let me take this audio input off. Alright, hopefully I did this right. Okay, cool. So yeah, y'all. Again, if you haven't subscribed to my Substack already, subscribe. I wrote this motherfucker, did this research over the past few days. Trying to get this shit together, y'all, man. Trying to get real cohesive and excellent at this content shit. So instead of trying to freestyle some shit, I said, you know what, let me do a full research, do a paper on what I want to talk about, and then use that to teach from. This is my first time doing it, so I'm trying to make it right and get a good flow to it and shit. But it's a little rough around the edges. But anybody that's here, Real GT, I don't know if you're still in here, but what's up, my boy? But yeah, I want to go through this shit, because like I say, man, there's a lot of practice going on, and it's a good thing that I ain't got, that my count is as low as it is, because shit, if it was if I was getting real views, motherfucker wouldn't be ready. So this is a good time for me to work out the kinks and the shit. So once we do get all 129 of my subs to watching and tuning in, we'll be able to do something with it. Actually have something. Because practice, learning this shit, and consistency. So yeah, man, you're not a narcissist. Deconstruction of societal labels. And the contemporary ubiquity of terms like narcissist and main character syndrome in popular culture, particularly on social media and in interpersonal discourse, highlights a profound cultural shift. These terms are commonly used to describe anyone perceived as selfish, self-absorbed, boastful, even though the clinical diagnosis of narcissist personality disorder is a severe and persistent mental health condition affecting only an estimated 1 to 2% of the U.S. population. Similarly, main character syndrome is not a formed psychological condition, but a popular social media mindset that emerged from platforms like TikTok. This incongruity between casual usage and formal definition underscores a significant problem: the transformation of specific pathological diagnoses into broad moralistic judgments that are easily deployed in everyday conversation. Popular culture has stripped these terms of their clinical meaning, repurposing them as convenient shorthand for anyone deemed difficult or self-involved. Oh shit, I was supposed to be doing this from the jump. Section 8, what's going on? Hey, I don't know if you've seen my DM, but Mop Law and Company is reaching out. We want to put together a class action. I don't appreciate the way they play with you. But the central argument, labels as mechanisms of social policing. And this is what I was talking about, how motherfuckers will tell you, they'll try to diagnose you or label you with some shit just to get you to act right. It used to be a time when motherfucker would tell you being arrogant or you conceited or you selfish. Now, motherfucker gotta be toxic, a narcissist, codependent. All these clinical terms that once properly applied, now you just you're a deviant. You deviated from what's going on. You know what I mean? You're not a member. You're not up here with them with, like I say, with the dominant portion of the shit, because you absorbed into yourself. But like I said, you better absorb into yourself. But with duality, with good balance. Don't overdo that shit. Now, hold on. Because like I was saying earlier, narcissism was originally based on a myth, a folklore, a made-up story. The concept of all this shit is made up. And even then, back in those Roman times, the reason they had those myths back then was for the same reason we have these terms and shit today, is to make motherfuckers act how society needs them to act or conduct themselves. You know what I'm saying? So, like I say, it's in the Western world, I use that because Rome was modeled after the Western world. Oh, excuse me, the Western world was modeled after Rome, let me put it that way. So a lot of the shit we doing is us trying to do what they doing. Hey, 69, I don't, yeah. But I'm gonna talk more about that tomorrow. But I definitely wanna get that litigated. Not real litigated, but you know what I mean. We're gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna be mean. Hold on, y'all. Sidebar. I'm not gonna be mean spirited. That's still a lady at the end of the day, but that was wrong. That wasn't cool. And you held it, and you still holding it down. You ain't stopped. That ain't changed. You still doing what the fuck you doing. I fuck with that. But I gotta make sure motherfucker get held to some level of accountability. You know what I mean? Because if your man ain't gonna do it and tell you, man, that shit wrong, you can't be doing that shit, and make you apologize, hey, well, the chat will do it. But I said that that's for another day. What was we? Yeah. I got off track. Let's get into main character syndrome. So, I always calling my boy main character syndrome. But that's okay. Look, so the term main character syndrome, that's some new shit. And that came from during COVID, when ain't nobody seeing nobody. Everybody by their goddamn self. People is limited human interaction, underscoring that no man is an island statement I made earlier. But that created this box where I'm gonna read what I wrote, where users create and share content that frame their lives as a movie or a book. Y'all remember that shit? Them motherfuckers would set up damn cameras to go shopping or at the workout, like you setting up cameras to film yourself doing your shit. Now that's some different shit, and I get it. But I want y'all to understand, it was during that time when they took that idea of main character, like that was applied to bullshit like that. I don't apply to a motherfucker like a motherfucker like AD, for people for reference. That doesn't apply to him. You supposed to be the main character in your life. Who the fuck else gonna be? So you mean to tell me you gonna let somebody convince you that you're not the main character in your life? Even if you have kids. Because everybody's the main character in their life, man. And you gotta stop letting societal cliches and terms and bullshit that people say to try to track you and block you and fit you into thinking in a certain way that really is some bullshit and it's gonna have you in last place. And the clearest indicator of this shit is you look at these success stories in whatever society you're in. In America, you look at your people who have made successes of themselves in the fields that they're in, be it a lawyer, like I said, a lawyer, a doctor, or an athlete, or entertainer. There has to be a level of self-absorption, of confidence that, like I say, if everyone had that, everybody would be the best. The American, that just don't even fit the formula. Even if that could be best for a country, for a nation, that's you wouldn't structure your shit like that. Because like I said, somebody got to cook the food, somebody got to deliver the package, somebody got to make this shit. And that's just the reality of the world. And they're going to apply that on everybody. So they set the standard of what it means to be that for everybody. It's up to you to be above that. It's up to you to not let what people say affect you. You know what I mean? For to keep pushing on what you know you're supposed to be doing. Otherwise, you conform and you become exactly what the motherfuckers who call you a narcissist are. So you conform not to be narcissist, but in your conforming, you're conforming to a narcissist society, to where in a hive mind or a group thought way, now the group is narcissist. Because remember, the concept of a narcissist is someone who will do anything and everything to achieve their goals. They'll gaslight you, they'll manipulate you, they'll do whatever's necessary. So what is it when you, the individual, see something for you and you do for you, and then the group tells you, nah, they manipulate you and they gaslight you and they tell you can't do that. You see what I mean? And that's how the society, the hive that is the society, that is the society, is narcissist. But the individuals in the fucking hive are not. Except the ones that have, but even with that, I can't say except, because like I said, that's a clinical diagnosis and most people don't fit it. But society as a whole would fit that construct. And the individuals in society, knowingly or not, do what they do, that facilitates that narcissist dominance that is necessary in a democratic society where majority rules. If the majority's opinion had no bearings on what the fuck all of us gonna do, motherfucker wouldn't be so quick to try to put you in a box, try to make you get back in line. Has pros and cons with everything. There's probably be another type of social policing going on from a different aspect. Russia, a long time ago, kind of how they started to get that shit back together. It was a status symbol. Like, you was somebody if you gave, like, if you did something, like in America, you gotta have shit to be somebody. And obviously we know that's not true, but in the eyes, you have to have shit to be something. Y'all get what I'm saying. In Russia, that wasn't how that was. In Russia, it was you had to give something to be somebody. Motherfuckers was prided on what they did for, you know what I'm saying? Not what they have or what they were willing to sacrifice type shit. Your status was shaped more so on that. And I only bring that up as a point to just show you how in different societies that have different structures, the social policing is different. So while in the Western world, it's telling you, man, don't think about yourself too much. But in most societies, it'll be don't think about yourself too much. Because, hey, man, it's more of us out here type shit. Bear with me 1 second, y'all. Yeah, I appreciate y'all. I lost my whole train of thought. But this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go through this other section talking about deconstructing the labels, the sociological and psychological perspectives. Now, like I said, it's linked in the chat. If y'all go follow my Substack. Don't cost nothing. It's just free information out there. That's where all my educational shit, all my intellectual shit, I do all that over there. But sociological labeling theory provides a powerful framework for deconstruction, the societal use of these terms. This theory posits that negative societal reaction to an individual's wrongdoing can alter their self-concept and social identity, leading to a self-fulfilling prophecy. Deviance from this perspective is not an inherent quality of an act, but a consequence of group labeling an individual as an outsider. The casual application of the narcissist label is a form of informal social control that reinforces societal norms by creating a deviant out of an individual who's merely ambitious or self-confident. And that's the that's the educated way to say what I've been rambling about. That you're a deviant. It's intentional that you are labeled a deviant for having self-confidence or being ambitious. I don't know if y'all know this shit, but man, I don't even want to say because I'm gonna mince it up a little bit. There was a culture. There was a time when ambition was an insult. Actually, let me pull that back. No, I'm not gonna do that because I don't want to mix it up, and that's something I can speak to strong at a later date. But there used to be a time, or there is a time in certain cultures where ambition is frowned upon. Not as deeply as narcissism, like how we do it with the narcissism label in America, because at the end of the day, there's still capitalism. There's certain aspects to where it can't be entirely against ambition, because that would just fuck up the whole ideology of what this American thing is and why you even convince motherfuckers to try to be here, want to be here. Now, in a meritocratic, individualistic culture, ambition and self-promotion are often celebrated as positive traits. However, social groups also require a degree of conformity to maintain cohesion and stable hierarchy. Individuals who deviate far from the norm by being too successful, too confident, or too visible can be perceived as a threat to the group's existing social hierarchy and the sense of collective value. Hey, wait a minute. I'm just realizing, hey, is my voice doubling? Bear with me, y'all, 1 second. Okay. All right. Can be too visible. By labeling the outliers' ambition as narcissism, the group reframes a socially positive trait, ambitious, as a pathological flaw. And this process delegitimizes the true individual success and justifies their social ostracization or bashing. This act, in turn, amplifies the perceived deviance and strengthens the individual's new identity as an outsider. So remember, I was like, motherfucker gonna call you a narcissist to give you a chance to get back in line. But if you really wanna do that, if you're gonna really be about yourself, then everything about this is just gonna self-fulfill itself. Because we're gonna identify for exactly what it is. So it seems prophetic. And once you can do that, you just attach that negative connotation to it. And now it seems like something you don't want. Hey man, humans are, man, we're capable creatures, I'll say that. So this process is reinforced by the concept of master status. Oh, a social position that is so dominant it overrides all other identities. For example, ex-convict or somebody that's mentally ill. That label heavily influences how people perceive and treat you, regardless of anything else you've done in your life. If a motherfucker's a felon, you don't have to rent to them. You don't have to give them a job. You know what I'm saying? There's certain shit that, because of this master status, that you can apply to a motherfucker. And narcissists and bipolar, those are the same things. I can throw that on you. So despite your successes, any complexities, any, you know what I'm saying, any nuances, all that can be disregarded, and we could just sum it up with the master status that you now belong to as a narcissist. And since, well, I don't fuck with narcissists, so if you're in that box, I don't have to deal with you. That's sick, yo. The psychological mechanisms that make these labels so effective as tools of social control are rooted in the human tendency to conform. Conformity is a powerful social force driven by the desire to gain social rewards and avoid punishment. People will often yield to group pressure and override their own judgment to avoid appearing different and stupid in the eyes of others. And those who choose a path of uniqueness and non-conformity threaten the conformist's sense of existential significance and are often ridiculed and ostracized by the group. Y'all remember, that's what I was saying earlier when I was like, you raise your hand in class and you may not know the answer, but you think you got it. So you got the confidence to raise your hand, and because you're not ordinary, you're extra. ordinary. But the other motherfucker who didn't raise their hand, though they thought they knew the answer, but they wasn't sure, when you get it wrong, they gonna try to tease you or make a joke about you because, you know what I mean? Why you ain't just do what I did? I did the right thing. I stayed in line. I wasn't wrong. And that ain't good for us, man. Fundamentally, that just ain't good for us. A deeper psychological layer lies in the concept of toxic shame. Now, while shame is a normal survival mechanism designed to alert us when our actions might threaten our relationship, narcissists often weaponize it to gain control. They relentlessly criticize and gaslight others until the victim internalizes the shame, leading to a profound fear of rejection and a belief that they are inherently flawed. Ain't that something, huh? This process is a form of psychological manipulation used to make a person question their own reality and become dependent on the abuser. Ain't that funny? How the person being accused of being a narcissist is being done so using narcissist tactics. Yeah, man, it's good to know these things. It's good because me and my cousin was talking about some shit a few days ago, and I was telling him something. He was like, I was telling him something. He was like, man, I already knew that. But he's like, I knew that. I thought that, but I didn't know that. And that's when I was trying to tell him, yeah, that's why it's important to know what you think. You know what I mean? Oftentimes, you have a feeling about some shit, or it makes sense, or logically that should be the conclusion. It helps to be able to ground that in a factual understanding. How do I say that? A factual understanding where I know what I'm talking about. It's not just something that feels right or that logically makes sense, but no. I can walk through every step of this and fully articulate it, For individuals with genuine MPD, grandiosity is often a fragile shield protecting a core deep-seated insecurity, shame and fear of failure. The widespread societal misuse of the narcissist label, which trivializes and mocks the condition, only reinforces this core shame. It creates a feedback loop where authentic self-expression is feared, leading to a greater reliance on the grandiose performance to protect the self. That's what MPD really is. And as I'm explaining now, I imagine if you've been paying attention, that applies to the hive narcissist. Like that's how that, how do I say it? Because the hive mentality is made up of the individual, but the individual is acting on the knowledge of the hive. If that's making any sense. We'll come back to that. Who benefits from the labeling economy? The proliferation of these labels is fundamentally an issue of power dynamics. Social rank theory posits that human groups, like other mammalian species, have an innate preference for hierarchical organization. This structure reduces the overall energy expenditure of the group by defining social roles and lowering competition for resources. An individual who is likely ambitious or charismatic can be perceived as a threat to this existing hierarchy, as their self-promotion and admiration pathway challenge the status of the chosen in power. So that's in the 48 Laws of Power, when they don't outshine the master. Why they saying that is because, well, not just that, but that and what I wrote here is the power dynamics. That's the shit to where I'm doing what I joined the conformity because I didn't like the way it felt when I was confident in myself. I didn't like the way that they made me feel when I was confident in myself. Every member of that hive has that, and it just bolsters and it's concentrated. You get what I'm saying? It's strongly concentrated to where anybody that's stepping outside of that, man, in their mind, you really seem wrong. You really don't seem right. Hey, bear with me 1 second, y'all. Sorry about that. My little one doing what she do. Where was I? I lost my train of thought. But let's get into how the algorithms echo chamber this shit. Before I even do that, I want to say, first time I even heard the concept of main character syndrome was from Pun. Now I know Pun just be bullshitting. He ain't eat. But I'm under the impression that Pun also thinks that is a real term. Because he heard it from some white mother. You know how this shit go. Look, modern media, particularly social platforms, are not merely a stage for these labels, but a key driver of their proliferation. Platforms like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook are algorithmically designed to amplify self-promotional behavior. The dopamine rush received from likes and comments creates a reward cycle that reinforces attention-seeking behaviors. Studies show direct correlation between high social media use, such as posting large quantities of selfies, and increased levels of grandiose narcissism over time. This suggests a reinforcing loop where where narcissistic traits lead to more social media use, which in turn amplifies those traits. Social media thus encourages a culture of perpetual self-surveillance, where every aspect of a person's life becomes a performance for an audience. Furthermore, the algorithms themselves are complicit in the process. They are designed to optimize for user engagement, which means they prioritize and amplify emotionally provocative or controversial content. A phrase like toxic narcissist is highly clickable, and it generates a lot of engagement, creating a feedback loop where a search for relationship problems leads to a constant diet of pop psychology content on covert narcissism or empath versus narcissism videos. This turns into a personal conflict and an adversarial dynamic. So when you get on the internet and you see the top 5 signs that he's a narcissist, or top 5 signs that you're an empath, newsflash, you're not an empath. You're not a narcissist. He's probably not an empath, and you're probably not a narcissist. Fuck. He's not a narcissist, and you're probably not an empath, and vice versa. But humans, the human mind, man, we go with shit. We hear some shit that we like, and it sounds good to us, and we feel like it's something that we can get with, and we adopt that shit. We subscribe to it. Next thing you know, you got a motherfucker saying, they'll say, oh, I'm an empath. And what that means is I can feel others. So as an empath, I can diagnose you as a narcissist. Y'all see, I don't know if y'all understand the dynamic of that, but that's basically saying I'm the victim and you if I'm the empath and you're the narcissist, then that makes me the victim and you the attacker. Now I know y'all probably never caught that, but that's what's going on when people use that shit. And I don't blame them, man. A lot of times people be genuine in heart, they be genuine in spirit. Like I say, man, the human mind is malleable. You hear some shit you like, and you just go with it. You're just attached to it. You know what I mean? And, hey, it is what it is. Where were we? Furthermore, the proliferation of pop psychology content trivia. Excuse me. And this is what I was just saying. The proliferation of pop psychology content trivializes complex clinical disorders and provides a simplistic lexicon for interpersonal conflict. This content often reduces complex mental conditions to easily digestible checklists, like I was saying earlier, leading to a culture of self-diagnoses and over-identification with labels. When an individual is in a conflict, it is emotionally difficult to accept their own role or to see the other person's perspective. Pop psychology offers a simplified binary framework. I'm an empath and you're a narcissist. This framework immediately validates the user's feelings and invalidates the other person's, creating a clear victim-abuser dynamic. By using a clinical label, the accuser is no longer just mad, they're analyzing and identifying a threat. And this provides a justification for cutting off contact and disengaging, effectively ending the conflict by declaring victory through diagnosis. And this process is analogous to the legal and sociological use of labels, which shifts the focus from the acts itself to the nature of the offender. Instead of addressing the specific behaviors, the person is condemned for their perceived deviant identity. And you can't fix that. You feel me? Yeah, man. The application of these labels is particularly visible in celebrity culture, where they're used as a form of public vilification, and that's propaganda. Celebrities are widely perceived as being significantly more narcissistic than the general population. The perception of public figures as having dark triad traits, which is narcissism, psychopathy, Machiavellianism, is a strong predictor of celebrity culture hate. Studies have also found that people with narcissist tendencies are drawn to careers in the public eye that promise fame and adoration, reinforcing this public perception. They said perception, I said deception, because look at the cold game that's being ran when they do it like that. So they're successful in what they're doing, but if you do that, you're a narcissist. They like that because they narcissists, so don't be like that. Maybe try to get there without being like that, because you're never gonna get there. And you won't find out till you so far in that you just give up because it was wasting so much. You know what I mean? It's insidious and it's dark, twisted games they play, man. And by they, I mean the powers that be, the people that created this social constructs. What's going on with the chat, man? Speedboat, what's happening? Piggy Hinges, what it do? All right. Now let's talk about the critical disconnect. A critical aspect of this analysis is the distinction between genuine pathology and misapplied labels. The popular understanding of a narcissist is a gross oversimplification that fails to capture the complexity and internal suffering of those with genuine NPD. The clinical reality of NPD, as defined by the DSM-5-TR, Auntie can tell you more about that, is a pervasive, long-term pattern of grandiosity, a need for admiration, and a profound lack of empathy, with individuals needing to meet at least 5 of 9 specific symptoms. This contrasts sharply with the pop culture perception, which labels any self-centered, boastful, or attention-seeking behavior as narcissistic. The most significant disservice of this cultural misrepresentation is its failure to acknowledge the vulnerability side of narcissism, which is characterized by deep-seated insecurity, shame, and a fear of failure. The grandiose behavior often serves as a fragile defense mechanism to protect a negative sense of self. By using the label as a catch-all for simple self-centeredness, pop culture not only trivializes a real and severe mental health condition, but also trivializes the experiences of those who have suffered from genuine abuse. This demonization of the condition also discourages individuals with MPD from seeking help for their underlying anxiety, depression, or other struggles. Now, critiquing the casual application of these labels does not negate the existence of genuine harmful abuse. True narcissist behavior involves deliberate manipulation, exploitation, and a profound lack of empathy. A common and particularly damaging tactic is gaslighting, a psychological manipulation technique used to make a victim question their own reality, memories, and sanity, leading to increased dependence on the abuser. The best way to address these behaviors is to label the behavior rather than the person, calling out the specific harmful actions explicitly. So when we're watching What Could Go Wrong and Heather Sanders is there because Pun couldn't be there, and her contributions to the show are leading it in a direction that is opposite of what the majority of the chat tunes in for. And then when a moderator, someone who chats have more visibility, expresses the concerns of the chat, this fill-in goes to attack her, attack the mods, and tell them, you shut up, you got a problem, all this type of stuff. That's indicative of narcissism shit. But we've been watching this shit long enough. I don't think they're gonna meet all. I don't think they would meet. I don't think she'd meet him or her. I don't think they'd meet 5 out of the 9 specifics. But there are tendencies. There are grave tendencies. That shouldn't be ignored. And we should talk about it. So like I said earlier, this wasn't gonna be a reaction to where we make this about what's going on currently or nothing. I wanted to put some ideas out there and some concepts out there, and maybe there's some shit going on that we can use to further teach or use as an example. And I think if anything fits, because we're gonna look at FMW as its own society, and there's a structure within and under that. I fuck with FMW. Like I say, I wouldn't even watch this shit if I didn't fuck with them. You know what I mean? Wrong is wrong, though. So I packaged that up to say that FMW is a society, so that we can kind of look at some of the tactics that we see and how they're applied. And I'm gonna say this. I want to say this. I think that these tactics are implied to benefit the society, not to hurt it. But no one's perfect. Most things aren't perfect. Nothing's perfect. Let me correct that shit. It's impossible for anything to be perfect. So, especially when you throw the human element of human reasoning and this shit in there, it'll be even greater flaws and shit. Well, don't let me get too far off. I'm saying all that to say, the FMW universe does operate in a narcissist, a NPD kind of way. Not as the individuals. I mean, with T-Rail and Heather, but I wouldn't clinically diagnose, because as we've been talking about this whole time, man, that's how you can pigeonhole motherfuckers. But we can look at the actions over a given time, and we can see where, people will gaslight their chat, tell you that it's one way when it's not, force you to accept that. And any deviants, anyone that doesn't go along with that, they do get ostracized. Look at Step. Look at Seven. Look at Smack. Look at my client. This is a great example. I don't even want to do that. We got to package that into a part 2, because I really need to. I would want to deliver that in a real concise way. I don't want to be all over the place with that, but I will say, when you see, I just start thinking about that shit. Now I'm thinking about I can't get my mind off how Heather and T-Rail be doing, and most specifically how what happened on what could go wrong under that. But we got to get back off. We gonna wrap this up, man. So don't be like that, man. Don't be like that. Don't be the motherfucker that you see somebody trying to that believes in themselves, and you try to make them out to be a narcissist. And don't be a narcissist. Don't be not the clinical version of it, but don't be the motherfucker that's gaslights and does whatever the fuck it needs to be done for you to get your way. You know what I mean? Don't be that motherfucker. That don't make you a narcissist. That makes you a unlikable motherfucker. Makes you self-absorbed. You know what I mean? But and that's why I gotta catch myself, and we gotta do a better job of catching ourselves. We don't. Auntie got the motherfucking degree in that shit. Let her diagnose motherfuckers. You know what I mean? You can identify traits that motherfuckers have, and as the shit said, and that's what I got sidetracked when I said what I said about you want to label the behavior rather than the person. That's what I was doing when I was talking about what Heather did when she did that bullshit. You call out the behavior. We ain't gonna call her a narcissist, but that was narcissistic behavior, or fucked up human behavior, just floss shit. Now, the hoax of narcissism and main character syndrome presents a powerful social trap. It offers a false binary. Either an individual conforms or risks self-erasure, the echo we talked about in the myth, or pursues the ambition and risks being labeled as pathological, the narcissist. The path to true resilience and independent living lies in transcending this false dichotomy. It requires an individual to cultivate a strong, integrated sense of self-worth that is neither grandiose nor dependent on external validation. Healthy ambition and self-regard are not pathological, nor do they require a supporting cast to provide a sense of purpose or meaning. The ultimate act of resistance is to refuse to be defined by these external labels. Instead of cultivating a self-worth that is an internal construct, instead cultivating a self-worth that is internal construct, not an external performance. It is the ability to navigate life's challenges and disappointments without needing a narrative to justify them or a label to explain them, thereby liberating the individual from the fear of being seen as either a main character or a side character. And that's where we at with that. I appreciate everybody. Oh damn. I'm just not coming back and looking that I didn't adjust my shit, so y'all couldn't read along with me like y'all was supposed to. But man, I appreciate everybody that tuned in. What's going on with the chat? Weak than a motherfucker, Speedboat. But like I said, we gonna get it litigated. Me and Speedboat, we try and put some shit together. Hopefully, here in the next few days, we'll be ready to get this get kangaroo court going. But I don't want to talk too much about finna bees and what will be type shit. I want to make sure y'all know. One second. To buy my book. Hold on. I need y'all to buy my book. If you haven't already, it's on Amazon Kindle. Unlimited for maybe like another, you got maybe a month and a half where you can get it for free. You can't own it for free, but it's relatively cheap, man. I don't want but $2.99 for it. And that's on the Amazon site. One second, let me get that so I can put that in the chat for motherfuckers. I appreciate everybody that's in here fucking with it today, man. Like I say, I'm doing something a little different to try to really get this shit as professional and proper as it can be. But with that, and there are growing pains. What the fuck? Okay, there we go. Alright. Yep. Go buy my book. It's linked in the chat. And let me pin that motherfucker. And I just pinned the Substack. If anybody want to read the actual publishing that I produced to go along with this stream, it's entitled, oh yeah, one second. You Are Not a Narcissist, a deconstruction of societal labels. Yeah, if y'all want to go through and read everything that I put together on that, it's on the Substack that's pinned in the chat. It's free to join. I'm not charging anything. Like I say, that's where you'll find a lot of my scholarly, intellectual research shit. Moving forward, what I think we're gonna do is every Mop Talks that I do, I'm gonna try to make sure that it's got something to do with a publishing like this. I'll figure out my topic, figure out whatever it is I'm going to talk about. I'll do the research, get a treatise together, or a report as we have here, and use that to teach from, and then make readily available for anybody, just to try to offer a more fuller and a more fuller product. But with all that being said, man, like I said, I appreciate everybody that tuned in today. I appreciate you deeply. Like the video, leave a comment, subscribe if you ain't subscribed already. And until next time, we gone.
Mop whack, what's happening with you? Mop whack, 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 mop whack.